Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session we are going to be reviewing someone's Wrecking Ball guide. This is a guide put together, as we can see in the header here, by someone who spent 20 seasons going from Silver to Masters playing Wrecking Ball. They've got some aim training, they upgraded their monitor. That's more of an upgrade than you need, but that's fine as long as you can, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're going to review this just so that you guys know who I am. I am Temporal. I have formerly coached contenders, multiple top 3 finishes. That's just me getting credentials out of the way, not that they matter, because I am reviewing someone else's guide here. I've skimmed this, and it wasn't like, oh my god, this is terribly wrong with a lot of stuff. So I expect that this is not going to be a super, super critical review, but there's certainly areas that we're going to be able to look at and say, hey, this could have potentially gone better. So let's look from a former contender coach's perspective. What does this look like as a guide? So here we are. It took me 20 seasons to get from Silver to Masters, so it's not a guide of from the best or the wisest. We'll see. He might be particularly good at coaching. Coaching and playing aren't necessarily the same thing. Making a guide isn't necessarily coaching, but same thing. Making a guide is different skill still than coaching, and he could be amazing at it. But it's a guide from someone who can feel most of you guys. Okay, special aim training for ball and the 240 hertz monitor helps a lot. Okay, getting yourself up to 60 frames matters, and going from 60 to 144 frames can help. You can definitely feel that. Anything that takes you beyond that is really in your head for the overwhelming majority of humanity. But hello, he's the guide creator. I will link this. You know what? I should actually link this now in there. Let me just edit this real quick into the description. Because it's fair that people can go here. Cool. And you guys can also jump to that in the description if you want to upvote it, upvote, downvote my comment saying that I'm reviewing it, whatever you guys want to do. Okay, submitted a VOD to be reviewed 4 months ago by Realth. Realth is pretty good at that, so should have gotten good stuff out of that. Worked on his mistakes, went through Diamond with a 73% win rate, and he did that from 3050 SR through Diamond with a 73% win rate. So they found some good stuff there. They did some good work. They were serious once they got their VOD review about working on their mistakes, and they got their 80% win rate that season to go 8-2. 8-2 wasn't a very I'm less a fan of that. 8-2 isn't a lot of time played, so I wonder if they then went on a fresh account or what. Because moving a lot of SR like that from 3050 to get through Diamond with an 8-2 record, that requires a pretty low sample size account. Like the way the game works, the way the ladder works is the more certainty that the ladder has of your SR, the slower it's going to move you. And the more games you play, the more certainty it has. So there's things you can do to shake its certainty. Like if you start playing way better or way worse than you were before, it's going to move you down a little, move you down a little, move you down a little. But if you start massively losing and just not doing very well, it's going to get, even though it's moving your actual rank down, it's also going to get less certain about your rank. And then if you keep losing, it'll be willing to do bigger jumps as it moves you down. And same thing with moving up. But in general, if you have a lot of games played on an account, it's going to be hard to move it a lot unless you make not like the types of improvements where you'd be like, I'm working on these 3 things, I've improved on these things, etc. Like to get those massive changes, you would need to like go level up a lot on a different account, or the account would need to be handed to someone else, or you would need to it would need to be a fresh account. So I wonder if there was a fresh account involved here. I would be curious about the story on that. Also, the only ever bottom 500 contenders coach. Well, I don't think the contenders players are bottom 500, but yes, I have coached some people down in sub 500 SR, including coached them up out of sub 500 SR. Okay, well, I have 31 years old, a full-time job, and play mostly to relax a few matches a night. I don't want to make too much fun of the English here. Could be second language, doesn't matter. But the way this is written, most people would look at that and be scratching their head for a second, saying, "Wait, do you have a 31-year-old child?" I have 31 years old. Generally, that would be I am 31 years old. I'm not trying to make fun of the language. English might be second language, or it could have just been a mistype. My spelling sucks, for example, so I'm not making fun of that. I'm just pointing that out for the guy. I'm assuming guy, might have been a woman who wrote this. Okay. I have myopia since 13. My eyes get tired easily. That's going to make it harder. I feel like most of my so that would partially explain a low number of games played because hey, if your eyes are going to get tired and you're doing it after work, you're not going to play very much. If you're only doing a couple games a night, that could have kept your sample size of games played low so that the ladder itself had less for the SR. So maybe that explains the going 8 and 2 moving 400 SR, which it would have to get through Diamond. Even so, I would lean towards it was a fresh account. If they'd played 20 seasons before. Yeah, I would still think there was a fresh account involved. Okay. At 3000 SR a couple seasons ago, I had a main issue with my aim not being good enough. You can run into this on ball. Main tank players frequently run into this because you can get away with Reinhardt and Winston really not having very good aim. If you don't have good aim, like if you have bad aim with ball, you will find that you can't get the finishes. You can do the like, hey, swing through pile drive, and that's worth up to 150 damage, but to get that last 50, that last 75 damage, you really got to get some decent weapon play damage done. Doesn't have to be amazing, but it has to be decent. And if you just haven't worked on your aim at all, you've been playing all Reinhardt, Winston, Mercy, whatever, who's can get away with no aim, you can really struggle to feel impactful with ball because ball does need to be able to finish off or threaten finishing off those eliminations. Got a better monitor, motion blur reduction. You want to be careful about this. Like, he has a special condition, and yes, higher frames can help, but we don't know what the old monitor was. It's rarely tech, guys. It's rarely the tech that is holding you back. Yes, getting yourself up to 144 frames does help. Yes, not like crashing one game in 5 does help, things like that. But if you can get above 60 frames, it's not your tech that is holding you back until you get to the very top. And I hesitate to let this sort of stuff be in a guide because what you run into is people latch onto this because this will feel like the most actionable thing and they'll feel like they've done everything else, so it must be the tech. And it's almost never the tech. It really is. As long as your game is stable, you can see what's happening, you get at least 60 frames, that's not holding you back sub masters, probably sub GM. But again, if you're DCing a lot, that's different. That can be a tech issue, an internet issue, etc. If your sensitivity is different, that could be a thing where you need to change your sensitivity, but you don't need the perfect sensitivity. You just need sensitivity that lets you actually have control and lets you elbow aim rather than wrist aim. Okay. This post sponsored by Samsung. Buy a 250 hertz monitor and just win. There you go. There you go. Maybe I should sell out with sponsorships like that, and that's where the real money is. Maybe this is a sponsored post and I'm the fool falling for it. Okay, I should actually be responding to it I should actually be reviewing it and come in with my own sponsor of no. What you actually need is you need this Dell monitor. That's what's wrong with this one right here. And there's a link in the description below. Use my referral code to buy. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. Okay. So. Uh. Nordstorm, I would prefer having consistent power. My UPS has been just turning off, and I find it hard to climb when I lose 100 SR a night to power loss. Some people might prefer inconsistent power, though. I also recommend gaming on a Sony Trinitron. Okay. Yes, guys. Yes. But yes, that is what I'm referring to, Nordstorm. Where if you're having like DC issues or the game crash issues, that's different, and the latter will not be kind to you if those are happening, even somewhat inconsistently. Okay. Okay. So we're starting with this in the hate. Ball is the most hated hero in the ladder. Citation needed. I have an endorsement level 2 and lots of warnings from Blizzard even now. Is saying your endorsement level 2 supposed to be like extremely low? Like 4s and 5s exist, but 2 is just, not 3, but it's not 1. We certainly see plenty of people who don't stick at 2s. That's not like extremely bad at the edges there. Lots of warnings from Blizzard. Most people want me to drop dead in chat. They're used to ball stalling at overtime and nothing else in the medal ranks. People just don't know how to play around a ball. So the next question is, there's some truth there, sure. Again, the endorsement level 2 is a little bit of a counter, but it's an anecdotal counter. they are used to ball stalling at overtime and nothing else. I mean, those balls, even the balls in low ranks, are doing other things. They're just not doing them at the same time as their team. They also wouldn't like if Winston wasn't doing things at the same time as their team. They also wouldn't like if Reinhardt was pushing when his team was back in spawn. But I get it. I do. There's more hatred for ball than there is for Winston and Reinhardt, for example. Should I swap? Yes, you can, but you really don't need to. I never swap. Good. I recommend very rarely swapping in these situations. Work on the hero you're trying to get good at. Work on your hero. If you try to work on 6 different heroes at once, you won't really be getting good at any of them. You do focused improvements. So this is good advice. At this point, I can't play anything else at the 3500 range. That happens, but just by getting a ball to the 3500 range, I guarantee you this guy had to work on other skills that mean that even though we played at a diamond range maybe before on other heroes, probably not, he's pulled up the level of those heroes, not to 3500, but to higher than they were before. If before his diva would have been at the 2000 range, now his diva is probably at the 3000 range, even though he hasn't spent any time playing diva between those two moments. Not even close. The point with Ball is that you can get value from him no matter what is being played. He is a very flexible hero. It's a very competitive game, but even so, you can get value from Ball no matter how many CCs around. Yes, because getting those CCs out is value. If you can get those CCs out and not get eliminated, you can get value from Ball. I hope he goes into this more. Copper quick play. I first read from this sub that quick play is useless for improvement. People shouldn't be saying that, and it always leads to bad habits. It's not quite true. It's not as good of a training ground, but it's not useless. So I bought a second account. Here we go at season 11 to play comp always. The points are valid, but it didn't work for me. What didn't work? Did you like you're not supposed to just automatically shoot up when you do competitive. The point is that competitive is a better training ground. An even better training ground would be competitive above your level, but you can't maintain that training ground. So like an even better training ground might be scrims, but you can't scrim as frequently as you can ladder. It's a lot more flexible to ladder. So like I think there's a misunderstanding of what the sub was getting at or what people in general are getting at when they say competitive is a training ground. Quick play is just fine to learn a new hero and practice. To practice mechanics, to work on a specific thing, it can be, but you can generally get better out of that from competitive. Quick play can work for things, but there are things that you will get punished harder, and that'll let you improve more as long as you're still getting the ability to practice what you want to practice. So disagree. You don't have all the salt from comp and lost streaks that will make you feel miserable. True, true. But then you're also not working in the environments that'll be as punishing, and people will let you get away with stuff more often than you should, and stuff that you wouldn't actually get away with, and then you'll be surprised and even caught off guard when you can't in competitive. And the reason that they're letting you do that is because they're fooling around working on their stuff more so than they are in competitive. They're focused on their game more generally, or waving at each other in a corner. The more you climb, the more you will miss comp. What? You don't have all the salt from comp, and lost streaks will make you feel miserable, but the more you climb, the more you will miss comp. Maybe what they're getting at is that the better you get, the more different those two environments become, competitive and quick play, and the more you will go, hey, comp is the better training ground. Maybe that's where they're going. I'm not totally following. This could be an English as a second language thing, or it could just be not an amazing writer. But either way, not a big deal. I only play comp, although, when I feel I can play my best. That's fine. But again, my advice would mostly be if you're playing consistently and you feel like, hey, this is a bad day, I'm not going to play well today, don't do it. You might still do your warm-up routine to work on your aim training, to work on any drills that you have, etc. And then you might go, that's all I'm doing for today, if ranking up is your goal. Not, well, I'm going to go play poorly in quick play. Now, you can't go, hey, 3, 4, 5 days in a row, I choose to only do my routine. If that's the case, you need to fix your schedule, fix your mentals, whatever, to the point where you can go, I'm playing most days of the week if you're trying to do that. But skipping a day where you feel like I'm just not playing well is totally fine, especially if you still do your warm-ups, your training, you just don't do your actual playing. Finally, how do I start with ball? You start with quick play and you start with feeding. Yes, you should watch some guides and that's it. It will took a lot of days until you feel comfortable with Hammond, but that's not what my guide is about. okay. I'd like some links here. Like I would. If we're going to make this a guide post, I'd like some links of like, watch this unranked to GM, or watch the first 30 minutes of this unranked to GM, or watch, the 45 minutes here of this guide, or go watch this how to play Hammond guide that's 10 minutes. And go, like, I would like something more specific. If I'm going to write up a guide and I'm going to make it, wrecking ball guide, blah, 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 I'm generally going to want to have some reference for my work. Like if you catch me and just like someone asks a question, hey, what training thing should I use? What's the code? I'm not going to be able to tell you because I'd have to go pull it, etc. But if I'm committing something to written form, I would generally like to have some specific to link something else somewhat permanent that people can use. So that's going to be a criticism from me here, because this person doesn't know what guides you're going to go watch. He might have watched some guides and think, hey, this would be the fastest way through, and that's fine. He might have some in mind, but he doesn't realize that other people aren't necessarily going to find those same guides. Oh, you should watch some guides. Oh, he did. My bad. My bad. What am I clicking into? You're kidding. No. 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 That's just a search for how to play Wrecking Ball. That is not. No. No. That doesn't count. I do not retract my previous point. I very much keep my previous point, because that search result thing is also going to be, it just sticks that into YouTube, and that's going to be based on, I believe, your YouTube's familiarity and what you watch, and it's going to be moved around because of that. Go back. We need to see what 3 steps are play Wrecking Ball. How to play Wrecking Ball 3-step guide. That might be a very good guide. I don't know. It's only 4 minutes. I don't really want to watch someone else's YouTube video in the middle of my video. Do I want to? Like, that could be interesting. Fine. We'll watch it in chunks.
Wrecking Ball is Doomfist, but tankier. The way his kit is designed, he gets most of his value as a hero from one quick engage. The reason for this is because after a proper engage, you've used most, if not all, of your abilities, which leaves you with your primary fire.
Okay, so that's sort of true. I expect that he'll go into this more. I'm pausing it in part because I need to break it up for YouTube to be happy that I'm not just taking other people's content. But I'm also pausing it because he may get to this. But yes, you get most of your value of a strong hard engage, but you do need to continue to either go, hey, you used your swing. Maybe you used your pile drive, you used your adaptive shield. You do either need to stay in and soak value with your adaptive shield, or you need to go to an angle and while waiting on your pile drive and your adaptive shield to come back, still provide some threat value, still provide some off angle value. Even if you don't go back in, you need to provide some off angle value, or you need to use your tether a second time to hit a roll through to disrupt them a little, to potentially knock someone away. You're not going to provide as much value as you did during your slam adaptive shield thing, but you do either need a weaker second cycle or off-angled weapon threat as Hammond, assuming that you're going in with this style that he's describing, which is the Doomfist impersonation, go in hard, etc. There's other styles, and that's fine, but assuming that, I hope he gets into that, because so far it doesn't sound hard enough.
And the roly-poly maneuver. The brains behind a good hit isn't how someone spams their abilities, it's how they set up, go in, and get out. In this video of a Wrecking Ball for Dummies, I'll be explaining just that in 3 steps.
Okay, so we're going to get our 3 steps for the big play, even though we haven't necessarily covered what comes after the big play.
Step 1, scouting. Simply put, if you know who your enemies are and where they want to go, it's easier to make a plan of attack. That's it. That's step 1.
Let's try and up our quality a little bit here. We can force this up to at least that without hurting our stream quality.
Pretty easy, right? Step 2, setting up. So there's this thing in the game called a choke, which
scouting, staging, dive. If he's really going to say scout, stage, dive,
is where people walk through to get to the point. And basically,
that's fair. It's good advice. And this is a generic guide meant for lots of people. Scout, stage, dive is fine if that's what he's going to say. It's just not
you want to be set up near
a breakthrough.
Preferably on high ground, because then you can just drop on enemies without using grapple. High ground makes it easier for you to a scout, and it also gives you cover.
Yeah, and Wrecking Ball is overpowered for scouting because Wrecking Ball has third-person camera, and it doesn't cost him anything to be third-person camera. He's in ball mode, which he likes to be anyways. His staging is nice because he's faster than someone like a Winston to go stage, and he beats someone like a Winston if he runs into them while trying to stage. So he's kind of overpowered for both the scout and the stage steps.
Let's assume the difficult scenario where you're not already set up. It might be tempting to run it down main and call that your setup into a hit, but that's usually the fastest way to feed. The best advice I can give you is to get behind them or take a flank angle while trying not to be spotted. This means taking the long way around sometimes, but that's fine. You're literally the fastest hero in the game.
Sure.
Now that you have this positioning, the enemy team should have their backs turned to you, making it easier to perform a hit.
Yeah, it's going to make your hit stronger. It makes your teams weaker by comparison. But if you get the timing right, where it's a case of, hey, it's going to be, I hit from here, the team turns to deal with me, my team's running in as I hit from here, and then they're hitting hard, and then I get out type thing, and then they turn back towards my team, and then I go in for my second wave that's just a roll through or is just off angle threat, etc. That could be right. We could still get there, maybe.
Step 3, hitting. All that's left now is to pick what
So it's scout stage dive.
for dinner. Will you boop the bulk of the enemies into your team? Will you go for the unsupported DPS? Speaking of support,
I like how we changed what you're reviewing. We'll go back to it. Don't worry.
maybe I'll dive them. So many choices, how does one choose? Well, the answer to that varies since there are currently 30 heroes in Overwatch, and each one of them does something different. Who or what to go for can get complicated. But I can give you some general ideas for what to look for.
Good. I want general tips. Those could be good. We've still got half the video to cover our dives, so let's get a good hero priority or something.
First, you look for opportunities. If there's someone wandering off that you can kill, go for it.
So separated people to try to assassinate. Okay.
If the enemy's too pushed up, help them push up more by booping them into your
Okay. Do you care what your team's composition is for that?
team. If there are no opportunities, then it's your job to create them. On
How?
some maps, forcing the objective can do that. On others, not so much. You want to go for pile drivers on the enemy if they have a little CC or no damage. Big tip here.
No. You can't say point pressure is one way to create it. Otherwise, like, point pressure is one way to potentially put pressure on the enemy team for them to separate, and then I'm just going to move on, etc. Like, well, what if that's not an option? What if they're turtled on point? You got to give me a little more. You got to talk about how, hey, you can take an off angle and shoot them from the off angle. You got to talk about, hey, instead of going hard hit and then soft hit with the roll through, you can go soft hit with the roll through first, and then on your second one come through for the big hard hit, because the soft roll throughs can help create the opportunities. Like, you got to go into more there. You got to. That is not adequate.
If they do have a lot of damage or CC, then you have to go for displacement over engagement.
Good.
In other words, more booping, less
Okay,
spamming.
that's better.
So, really quick, to recap the 3 steps. Find the enemy, get behind them or adjacent to them, and hit them depending on what you're working with.
See, this is just so silly to me because, like, he knows that the terminology is scout stage dive. Like, he's correct in what he's doing here, but he's, like, intentionally not saying the thing that Overwatch has known as the terminology in the professional world for years. When was this published? Yeah, no, that's not cool. That's not cool at all, because it's like intentionally avoiding the terminology that people have always used for this to use my own terminology. Like, I don't care if you used other terminology, came up with other terminology, it lost and it doesn't describe something different. So you lose points for that in my mark, because you're just creating confusion for your potential viewers if they've heard that other terminology and are now somehow thinking this is different. Unless he wants to point out how they are different, in which case, if he does that, I'd be very interested in that hypothesis.
But before we wrap things up, I want to introduce some special cases for setting up and hitting. When setting up, what might happen is you'll get your flank checked. Depending on who's checking it, you have to quickly decide if you're taking a 1v1 or making a run.
I'm glad he
If it's
covers
a
this.
1v1 matchup you win, then obviously we take these, but chances are you ran into a tracer.
Yeah,
Usually
you
you'll
you
win
don't take
somehow.
those.
Unless you have a healing advantage, just grapple past her, or take the L and go the other way. Now the
More likely you're gonna have to take the L and go the other way. And I'd have liked that to be covered a little better.
special case for hitting is Widowmaker. Widow is always a top priority. You gotta treat the enemy Widow like she's a hacker and constantly dive her. Ideally, you want to confirm the kill, but if you can't, at the very least, you're buying your team time to make a rotation.
It's not
without
too hard to
getting their
confirm
heads
it
blown
when
out.
she's lost the
Lastly,
25
don't be
health now.
scared to hit and run. When the fight breaks down, pay attention to your health. Make sure you make plays based off of that. If you're still at 1000 HP after a hit, you can play a little bit more aggressively. If you're less than half, then you should probably book it. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate 3-step guide
Okay.
for Wrecking Balls in all elos. I know this guide may seem super simple, but take it from me, this is the correct way to play Wrecking Ball on a macro level. I want to put in a real quick plug to the 5 Overwatch concepts video I did with Karki a while back.
Okay, and that's fine.
As I was making this video, I realized some ideas overlap, but that video does a better job of explaining stuff. So please check it out and hit my man Karki with a sub.
Okay, so I don't mind that. This video I sort of look at and go, hey, it's only a 3.5-minute video. It didn't call itself like the complete or the ultimate guide. It called itself a For Dummies guide. It was 3 steps. It didn't do as good a job as I'd have liked explaining some of the flank setup stuff for the staging, like what happens when your staging is being challenged. It did an okay job of explaining the scouting. I give it like a 5 out of 10 on explaining how to do the staging. I give it like a 7 out of 10 on the scouting. I'm going to probably give it a 6 or a 7. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 on the actual dive portion, because it sort of explained like, hey, do this, sort of break it up with point, and then it started to not, but then it came back and explained what to do. Okay, well, you're going to have to do soft hits instead of hard hits, and that was good. It didn't really give us much in terms of target priority at all, and I am tempted to bump it down for that. I think I will bump it down for that, actually. And it was, again, this wasn't a super thorough, super complete thing, so I'm also going to be kind to it for that. So this looks like, what, a 5, a 6, and a 7, but I think I'm probably going to call it, because it's calling itself a For Dummies. And I also want to knock it down a little bit for just being like, I'm going to rename these concepts that people have known forever. I am going to knock it down for that, and I would probably call this, for what it is, like a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10. It's not terrible by any means. It's not like, oh my god, this is terrible, this is getting a ton of misinformation out there. It just really didn't go beyond scratching the surface, and it even hinted in some places like there's depth to this, and we're not going to go into it at all. But some of this you really need to know. Like, no, really, who are we going after? Is it better to hit a max number of people pile drive, or is it better to hit a pile drive when there's 3 people in the pile drive that's like, are there 3 people that are spread out like that? Do you aim here and get max total damage, or do you aim here and get more damage on this and less on these guys? I don't know. You guys, the guide was supposed to tell me, which am I supposed to do, type thing. So like, there's more here that I really would have liked, or just go past the tracer. Yeah, I need a little more there. Maybe give me a little more, even just a couple examples of, hey, if you run into a Winston or a Genji, you can fight your way past them. If you run into a tracer, you might have to leave. If you run into a Hammond, try to fight them in a place on that angle where you get support help and they don't. And he touched that a little bit. So like, it was okay. It was an okay guide. 6.5, 7 out of 10. Again, if it had called itself like the ultimate or the complete or the only guide you'll ever need, I'd rate it more harshly. But this was clearly a like mini guide type thing. Probably tried to do a little too much, and I would have preferred a little more depth. Like Scout Stage Dive is reasonable for a mini guide, but I would have preferred a little more depth on those things. Yeah. I'll catch up on chat now, and then we'll go back to reviewing the Reddit guide someone posted. Okay, so there we go. Let's catch up on chat. I know I've got a lot to catch up on here. He's a grandpa with a 31-year-old still living in his basement. Maybe. I commented that. It would be very interesting to see the SR algorithm. Obviously, showing it to the public would break it. Not really. The only part that would be broken by showing it to the public was the part that is specifically about the sub-diamond individual SR adjustments, because people would try to game that system. The rest of it being publicly available wouldn't actually be that gameable. The only thing it would do that they wouldn't like is other developers would be able to potentially look at it and copy it and save themselves steps. It really wouldn't be that gameable by players. This post sponsored, right? The USB stuff, get a better UPS. We'll replace it with the battery. Uh, yeah, 2 is pretty awful. Is it? Is 2 that awful? Two's not good. It's not good, definitely, but yeah. Let's do an endorsement level 5. I only alternate between 3 and 4. Yeah, 5 exists. 5 exists. Um, I feel like you just get endorsement level 2 automatically if you don't talk. Yeah, I think that's pretty much how it works. Uh, you like Sigma, so I was happy to see a ball on your team. There is no hatred for Winston Ryan. There's some hatred for Winston because you could be on Ryan, but yes. Tank should have 3 if they've played and won games and aren't toxic. That's true. That's true. That is low for a tank. Stupid question, but what is the advantage of Ball over Winston? Well, one of them is that Ball scouts and stages better. Ball has that third-person camera that lets him see around walls, which allows for better scouting, and he also moves faster in his neutral game without using cooldowns, which allows him to more easily take aggressive positions for the staging. He also, if he runs into other flankers trying to battle him for the staging, he beats Winston, for example. So if they're both battling like they were on Busan there and he ran into a Tracer, if he'd run into a Winston instead, he just wins because he can outrange the Winston, poke him down with the weapon, and Winston really can't take that fight. So having someone that you're going to run into while you're trying to stage that you beat is an advantage. Temporal, what's Ball's favorite tank partner? Ooh, good question. I mean, the meta that he's had the most success in might be that hybrid meta that we had where it was Sigma. Certainly can work with a Diva, but doesn't need it. Can get some good stuff out of a Zarya, but doesn't need it. Ball's pretty flexible with their tank partner. Can obviously do the, Boop and Roadhog hook stuff. Can obviously do some of the Arista stuff. Like, Ball is pretty flexible. Ball, like Roadhog, is one of the things where they might technically have a partner, but they don't have a hard partner. Like, this is who you need, the way that Winston pretty hard partners with Diva. Ryan sort of hard partners with Zarya. Like, I'd say they're the most flexible in terms of who their partner is. It's what do you need type thing. And Ball Winston isn't the throw either. It's just hyper aggressive. Because Ball has been sort of designed as the most independent of the main tanks. That's why they don't have a need of a specific partner quite the same way. Really? Do people still default to tanks are awesome? Hog, Rissa. uh, didn't they link them? It's blue. Yeah, we saw this. We saw this. They didn't really link them. Uh, Nardstorm. This is like when you post a manufacturer support forum for help, and then one of their employees just replies with the link in the generic article that you've already read. Yeah, that's about right. You just made a temporal reacts vid. Yeah, I don't think I can deny that. I expect to play as a GM Ball after following these 3 steps. This is terrible. I feel cheated. If this costed anything, I'd want my money back. Fair. I like how we changed what you're reviewing. We didn't. This is one of the guides the Reddit post is referring to. That's a fair take on it. Wait, was it Yeedle that posted Overwatch University? No, guys, no, guys. What we're actually reviewing is this right here, but this did a link to some guides. Not really. It's how to play Wrecking Ball on YouTube, and I think this will change based on who searches it. Like, I think this is probably doing more, this is probably somewhat based on my search history that Google is doing it. Like, it put this text in here, but the results are probably influenced by what I've watched compared to what they've watched. Probably. This is the guide that we were actually reviewing and we'll get back to reviewing, but people wanted to see this one. And this one was a, Yeedle 3 steps that are really Scout Stage Dive that he's decided to rename. Just raised 400 health for nothing. Bad trade. That's true. I really like that he doesn't give a simple dive hierarchy, but explain that there's many factors to consider, which I'm good with, but I'd like those factors covered a little more if you're going to do that. You can explain, if you're not going to give a hard hierarchy of heroes, that's totally fine with me. That's even more right. But give us at least some of the logic that's going into it. And teach us a little more about what to do if there's too much CC. Like, find the alone people, try to bait the CC out of them using a CC like a flash on you when they're covering a flank alone and can't really punish you, and you can go get health back more quickly than they can get their CC back. That would be a good thing to explain in more detail. This guy looks like the guy from My Name is Earl. My name is Earl. This is how I play Hammond. As someone who is absolute trash ball, this video would actually be helpful to me. That's fine. It's not like it was a terrible video. It's just, again, that was Scout Stage Dive. Hey, Semitic. Keeping endorsement level 5 feels like you pretty much have to openly ask everyone to endorse you every game. I think that's probably true. Level 5 endorsement, exclusively quick play support, says good luck, have fun in chat. Okay. My Cyrus Wrecking Ball recommendation? Yeah, that's about right. Okay. So let's cancel out of these and go back to a ball. So watch other people's guides. Maybe I need to make a guide and I need to be in the Some Guides result. Who knows? Or maybe this video will be in the Some Guides results at some point for some people. You really learn the ball playing deep in the enemy lines without help and without dying. Yes, that is a good place to play the ball. In the enemy lines, behind the enemy lines would be more accurate. And then you feed a lot. The goal here is to call to yourself how many attention and cooldowns you can have and get away with it. But you need to be sure your team is around. 1v6 is still bad, and this was the hardest lesson for me. So this is sort of right. This is the right concept. Unfortunately, the struggling with the language here is hurting the precision of this a bit, and this is the important part. Yes, what they're trying to get at is, hey, you do want to be behind the enemy team, not in the enemy team. When you do go into the enemy team from behind or from the side, it needs to be when your team is already running or is capable of running at the other team or opening threatening angles on the other team. It needs to be when your team is engaging or can be engaging. Like, that's when you need to take your engage. And yes, you do go in hard and you might be going into what looks like a 1v6, but if you're doing it when your team can actually contribute, when your team is actually contributing, even if they're by distance far away, but they're in their effective weapon ranges, that's fine. That's what he's trying to get at, and that is important. But that is like the most important thing, period, which is, hey, engage when your team is ready to help. Engage with your cooldowns available if you're doing a hard engage, and engage when your team is ready to contribute. Congratulations, you now know how to play a main tank. But yes, that is incredibly important. Stall is for the weak. Unless it's overtime, you should not be concerned with the point card or whatever. Unfortunately, that's what all people think Hammond is good for. Spin to win is a very bad habit. It's not a very bad habit. It's just it's only something that you do when it's relevant to contest point, and it's not always relevant to contest point. Now, you might get some extra touches to contest point, like, hey, Route 66, we lost first team fight as defenders, and you might go, I didn't get eliminated, so I'm going to gently touch point and leave, and I'm going to gently go back in and touch point and leave, and as long as you don't spend too much health doing it, that can make sense while your team is coming back. But no, you're not going to go to point and just spin and spin and spin around it, but you could do a touch point leave if you don't spend a ton of health doing it, as long as you're ready, have your cooldowns, have your health, to actually then go in again for the real team fight when your team is able to go in. So I would, again, say this isn't necessarily totally wrong, but it's not covered with the level of detail that I'd like, and I suspect there's probably not actually an understanding here even of the, hey, when you're on defense and your team wiped, if you can gently touch the point and get out, gently touch the point and get out, I'd like to see something on that if we're talking about point stall, because that's a counterexample to this. You don't peel often because you are the reason that people need peel in the first time. So now we get to, right, this is good. You are not going to peel very often as ball. You might peel in the sense of, I'm removing that Widowmaker. I'm removing that soldier from that dangerous spot, but you're not going to peel in your own backline. Target priority. It's Widow number 1. Okay. I don't swap to ball. I don't swap ball, but I don't know a Widow in my climbing that didn't swap. I doubt that. I very much doubt that. Oh, never mind. They didn't play very many games, so maybe that's true. Second, whoever is trying to flank or at high ground. Whoever is trying to flank or at high ground. No. I'm not actively looking to fight flankers as ball. That's just wrong. High ground I like. Go challenge high ground people. That's fine. But I'm not actively looking to challenge flankers at ball. If Tracer is trying to flank or Sombra is trying to flank, I am not actively trying to challenge them. I might semi-actively challenge Sombra by intentionally hunting for her translocators, but I'm not challenging her directly or Tracer directly on the flanks, really. So no, that's going to be wrong. I would rather, if it's a situation of, hey, my team is here, your team is here. If Tracer goes this way, I'm perfectly happy to go this way, and I'm going to consider that a win. If my Tracer will go with me, sure, we can go this way and we can 2v1 the Tracer. Totally fine. But if there's a Tracer flanking on the other team and me flanking on my team, I'll miss that. I'll be like, yep, you're going to get into my backline, I'm going to get into your backline. Fine with me. So no, I'm disagreeing here. As a ball, those are yours. You need to control a flank because a flank is what gets you access to their side of the map, which is something you need. But that doesn't mean you have to fight the flanker. Most spots in Overwatch have multiple flank routes. You can't really stop an entire team from there without help. You can't even stop a Tracer from there without help. But that's what you will do. No. Third, anyone who is isolated, even if sneak. Yeah, isolated people are good as long as they're not hyper mobile like Tracer. Um, Ford, fourth. Zen, just because he is easy to eliminate. As long as you get the jump on him. As long as you get the jump on him, he's pretty easy to eliminate. Fifth, Mercy. Sort of. I mean, you're not going to be able to stick to her. She is going to get away, and then you're going to have to follow. But if you've engaged with the right timing, she is a good person to stay on, and you do have the tools mostly to stop her from regenerating health. I'm not sure I'd have called her out specifically in the list, but okay. Calling Zen out is reasonable. Calling her out. Overwatch is a misleading name. Eliminate Mercy is more appropriate and win games. In Masters? I guess this was him climbing through Diamond. Like, that's true in Silver. You'll win a lot of games in Silver. Like, Winston's can go, how am I playing Winston? I am playing Winston in the full hunt Mercy mode. It's a way to play Winston. It's not an amazing way to play Winston. It won't work in Masters and such, etc. Maybe Ball can get away with it for a little bit longer, but I wouldn't go in as hard as he has here. Um, yeah. Sixth, support because they heal. We've already covered who was higher in the priority. Anyone who is isolated. So that's sort of going to cover off-angle high ground people. Hit scan specifically. Flanker the high ground, we've covered that. I guess we can generically say supports here because we've already covered those. Then squishies. Sure. But again, like this is for specifically battling and dueling. Like I might intentionally knock around a Reinhardt. I might intentionally knock a Reinhardt into my team if my team has its own Reinhardts and things like that. Like I might knock a Reinhardt in, someone who's very brawly. I might knock a tank in, a Zarya in, a Diva in, whatever, if they're vulnerable. But that's because I'm setting them up for a team elimination. We could get more detail here. Then squishies, then whatever your team is firing at, because focus fire is very good. Yeah. Tanks, in my opinion, Ball doesn't have any advantage against other tanks. Since the boop nerf, you should avoid other tanks, and your tank duo will I am tanking alone at chat often. I mean, the boop is weaker, but there's still value in knocking, like, if there's a Reinhardt here and his team behind him because they're advancing, and you go, let me do a quick roll through and knock that Reinhardt over here, and now your Ash and Junkrat go pew 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 pew. Like that's still pretty good. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still pretty good. I don't know about this. I'd get more into this. That said, this is ladder. This is a ladder specific thing. Still, this play has some merit. Nothing you can do, to be honest. A lot of the time, I don't even know what my team is running. Points for honesty, I guess, but that's the problem. You have one style of Hammond that you've developed, and you haven't adjusted that style to what your team is running. So the one style of Hammond that you're running is I'm going to go in hard with my cooldowns, which is good. That's a good thing to do. And I'm going to go after isolated targets. Super chat coming in from Adam Nicholas for 199. Thank you, Adam. Temporal sucks. Hammond mains don't listen to him. Thank you for that super chat, Adam. Okay, so what was I saying here? It looks like this guy's got one style, and we can see that in here. His one style really is, or his ways of playing Hammond really is, go in and go in hard, and he covered that up in here, which was good. This was good that he covered it. Go in hard with your cooldowns when your team is ready to contribute. That probably is the most important thing. So I'm happy to see that. But then we're seeing he's got a very, well, other than that, I am trying to go for places where I specifically as Hammonds can get eliminations. And that's useful, but there's more to the matchups that aren't being thought about here. Like, that's useful, and you can win some games like that, but Hammond, part of what makes him so good is he has a lot of flexibility. If we think of this as the one way to play the game, that's sort of a generic go for those hard hits, go for those solo eliminations when you can. That's like, okay, big hard hits and then solo elimination. So we'll call that two ways to play the game. I'm calling them hits, big hard dives. I blame the thing that we watched there. That's two ways to play the game. Maybe I should call it two ways. But then there's more. Like, if you have a heavy poke team and the opponents have a heavy brawl team, you absolutely want to do more roll throughs in like this direction. If your team is over here, to knock the other team back, more knocks to the side to knock their shield out of the way so that your team can shoot them. You want to mess them up as they're advancing. You don't want to necessarily do big hard hits. You'll do the big hard hit when they get to your team. You want to do the soft hits repeatedly, the roll throughs that keep slowing them down to give them more time rotating through dangerous space for your poke team to take care of them. If you have a really heavy brawl team, and they have a more poke team, you might want to knock them this way, to knock their Orisa, to knock their Diva, to knock their whoever into your brawl team, so that your brawl team is now closer to them and can take them apart. Like, this is lacking in the flexibility. What he's doing will work well with a dive team, and will work well for him individually to take care of things. But there's not an adjustment here for how do our teams match up, and that's why he's saying it's bad to play in this other way. And then he's saying, I don't even know what my team is running. Well, it's not bad to play in this other way. It's just these other ways, this third and fourth way to play, come alive for specific matchups. And they might be less common on the ladder, and they might be a little harder to implement, but you will, especially in Masters, but even in Diamond, run into teams that will, their poke is good enough that you should be going, hey, it's a Diamond Ash. The Diamond Dash is going to be plenty good enough. The Diamond Hanzo is going to be plenty good enough. The Diamond Orisa is going to be plenty good enough to take advantage if you're doing roll throughs to delay the team, to mess up the other team, to make them spend more time there rather than just your hard dives while they're rotating through hard spots. And you can hit hard dives on them while they're rotating through the hard spots too, especially if you all have your cooldowns back by the time they actually get to your team. But you want to get a lot of roll throughs, a lot of mess them up to enable your poke type things. Okay. Okay. When you grab their healer's attention, even if you don't eliminate, you already have a big advantage. Yes, that is true. That is the very dive playstyle, but that is true. Cooldowns, it's very important to play around your cooldowns, just like Doomfist. True, though you have a better neutral than Doomfist does, or a better I'm out cooldown game than Doomfist does. You don't want to hard engage without your E. Yes, as long as we define hard engage correctly. Make sure to aim your pile drives. You only get 100 damage if it's right next to, more like on top of, the adversary. You must aim your shields to get 3 or 4 people in there to actually put use on them. Fair enough. You can use time between cooldowns to go after health packs. That's one thing you can do. Please talk about more you can do besides getting health packs, though. Don't mind your healers mid-fight. They can use their time better. Yes. So he's not saying don't peel for them here, that would also be true. He's saying don't worry specifically about giving them heals mid-fight, giving them the ult charge from healing you. Go get health packs. And that is good advice. Good, and we are getting into an or. Or you can go scouting to get a favorable position. You're not so much going to go scouting. If you hit with a hard engage, you're not likely to stay in long enough after your hard engage. The team fight is likely to continue on after you've left after your hard engage, so that's not really a time to go scouting. That might be time to rotate back into a good position to do work. That might be time to rotate out to go get health packs so that your healers can stay in the fight type thing. That's not really going to be a time to go scouting. Scouting is a good thing to do, but you're probably not doing that after your hard engage. Getting a favorable position, mostly high ground? Maybe, but I'm not willing to really spend the time it takes to necessarily go get high ground so I can pile drive in again or something. Between. I might go take high ground from an individual person on the opposing team after I've done my hard engage. I might go hard engage on low ground, roll away, and then I've got my roll through to knock a soldier off high ground type thing. That I might do. Mostly high ground. If you are safe to do some poke damage, do your poke damage from the high ground. That's okay. I'd prefer to do the poke. I don't need the high ground for that. I'm perfectly happy doing it from behind them, doing it from the side of them compared to my team, but that's fine. Playing Budget Tracer is fine. Playing Budget Tracer that doesn't have blinks left is fine. I'd be careful about Budget Tracer. Uh, yeah, I'd be careful with this. Like Budget Tracer is when you've already pile drived and you still have 300 shields left and you're in after your pile drive. That's when you're playing Budget Tracer. Once those shields are gone and that cooldown is used, now you're playing from further away compared to the enemy team, and maybe you're playing your cover, and now you're playing like no blink Tracer, where you're going, I'm not doing much, but I'm providing some distraction. That's more what that would be. Mines are easy to farm and a good ult. It's hard to get people into mines even with pile drive combo. They can win a lot of fights by denying space and mostly split tanks from the rest of the team. Yeah, okay. Just take care with CC canceling. That's worth knowing. With CC canceling it, yes, you can get stunned while deploying mines and lose your mines. And Zen and Diva ult clearing, or Reinhardt swinging his hammer into it, or shattering it, or whatever. Mines are also very good at overtime. Sure. I would like more here. This is pretty light for covering his ultimate. This is pretty light. Easy to farm and a good ult. Okay. Cool. It's hard to get people into mines, even with the pile drive combo. Okay. Do you still want to explain what the pile drive combo is? Do we feel that that's worth explaining, that the concept there is, hey, you're going to mine, then you're going to pile drive, and the reason that you're mining from above is your mines take time to activate, and your pile drive then, so your mines start to activate, you then pile drive, that knocks people up and stops them from moving, and then they fall down, and then the mines are closer to active by the time they're able to start moving again? Do we want to explain what the combo is, or are we just assuming people got that from some guides? Well, I hope so. But they can win a lot of fights by denying space and split tanks. Splitting people from tanks is good. Denying space, I'd like a little more. Like, if people understand the concept of denying space to a reasonable level, do they need the guide in the first place? Do they understand denying space without understanding this? Can we get a little more explanation of what denying space is as a concept? Like, oh, it has to be, yeah, you can use your mines, you can use them to deny space. When do we use them to deny space? What does denying space mean? That means, oh, separating people from tanks, that can be good. That can mean, oh, hey, Anna's healing from the corner of Hanamura's second spawn when she's defending, and you go use your mines to force her to leave so that she has to go play from inside spawn and literally can't contribute to the fight. That kind of thing. Sure. Like, can we get a little bit more in our examples? Splitting tanks, that's a good example, but I'd like a little bit more. Um, or it can be stuff like, hey, the Reinhardt is in, but now we're not letting the Reaper in, or, people who would like to still get in type things. Or you knock someone away so that they're behind a corner. So say your team is kind of like the Anna example, your team is here, there's some sort of corner here. The opposing team is like split like this, set like this, etc., ready to use their corner for cover, and you come through and knock one or two of them back in past this corner, and then you drop your mines to sort of deny this, etc. So that now these people who are out here are like, oh shoot, and we're separated, and you've made it so that they're separated. I'd like a little bit more on this denying space thing. Creating splits is good. That was somewhat covered. And hey, stuff can be CC canceled. So what does that mean? Are you supposed to bait them first? Are you supposed to mine from above where they can't stun you? What are you supposed to do about this? Take care. Take care meaning what? Baiting solo ults. Feeding is not good, but the best hero 2-feed is Ball because he is the fastest. Eh. Okay. Okay. Counters, here's my tier list. Worst, Sombra, Kree, Tracer, Hog. Bad, Bastion, Brig, May, Reaper, Soldier, Sim, Torb. The bad counters are easier to play around. Okay, so our worst counters are Sombra, Kree, Tracer, and Hog. At a very high level, the Sombra game gets more complicated. Tracer beats you pretty bad on the flank stuff, like we talked about, but is someone you will run into frequently and should not even make you consider a swap. Like you're not you're Tracer's annoying, but you're never gonna swap for her. So yeah, I'm hesitant to put her this high in the counter tier list. No, no, we don't get to. Tracer can't be here. Make and Brig shouldn't be here. Like we can't have Tracer in this tier and then have have Brig and May in the not as bad tier. That's not going to work. Brig and May are both more annoying counters than Tracer, but also more annoying counters than Kree. Um, this needs to be more like Sombra, Brig, May in this tier. Maybe you put Kree in this tier, and then everything else, including Hog, gets dumped into the other tier. Soldier's really not that annoying. Soldier doesn't belong on this list at all. And the rest of that is fine. Yeah. The bad counters are easier to play around. Anyway, most Sombras are easy to avoid because they never have the hours on Sombra to counter you, so all you need to do is stick with your team. Stick with your team. But didn't we just lead us to a video that was, hey, you shouldn't be engaging from the same direction as your team, go get behind the team? I mean, yeah, that'll work, but like, tell me more. But CCs are very bad for ball. Sure, except they're worse for everyone else. Ball can go in and takes 2 CCs and still live. No one else can do that. So, like, yes, let's have a talk about go and find the McCree who's playing on an off angle and get him to pile or get him to flash you when you're fighting for a flank and then get out and then he's actually in worse shape than you are. Like, we need to talk about this stuff. Or, hey, I went in and I ate the bash and then the flash and I'm, whimpering and scared, but I got out safely. And now my tracer is just going to tear these guys up because that was the plan all along. Like, my secret aim training. This I like. I like that he's actually covering aim training here because I think that does help for ball. I think ball is going to be played by a lot of main tank players who don't have a lot of time doing serious aim because the only main tank before him that really required aim was Orisa, and most people didn't play very much Orisa because they found her boring. Every time I'm not on game playing ball, I am playing Tracer at DM. The one clip thing she does is just like the window of opportunity you get as Wrecking Ball after Pile Driver. Not okay. Oh, so you train by playing Tracer. Yeah, they have the same aiming style, same weapon. Sure. Not feeding, also a Tracer thing. Getting a blind spot to headshot the squishies at melee range. It's a Tracer thing. I don't think play anything but Tracer in DM. You could also play Wrecking Ball in DM. Like seriously, it's not that big a deal. It's annoying to some of the players that are there, but as long as you're not going into the specific try hard ones, no one's really going to care. And it's not Hog or Brig. It's in modern Brig isn't even that annoying in DM. You can play ball in most DMs lobbies. It's not that big a deal. But Tracer's fine. That's reasonable. Tracer's a reasonable person to practice with. I would spend some time specifically practicing on Wrecking Ball to actually convert that training, but it's not going to take much to actively convert that. I think these are the basics, so we're calling it basics, of my viewing of Hammond. If you hate it, let me know. I know it's highly controversial tips. I don't think people are going to find it that highly controversial. I certainly picked at a lot of stuff, but I'm me. I'm highly critical. Like, yeah. If you have any doubts, I'm here. If you want to see me playing, this is the game that took me to Masters. Oh, that's cool. We included a replay code. It makes this not permanent, and you'd expect a guide like this. Well, I guess it's Reddit, so we know it isn't actually permanent. Not that it'll get deleted from Reddit, but it'll be buried and no one will ever find it again. But the theory is that people can find it in the future, and this replay code wouldn't be watchable. So we might have wanted to record the gameplay from our session as well, which we could do from the replay viewer to make this more permanent for future viewers. I never wrote this much in English. Yeah, that's English second language. No big deal. Took me a couple hours. I'm pretty sure there were a lot of errors. Cheers from Brazil. Don't really count me out. That's fine. Okay, so that's the guide. Let's give this a rating. Like, there's not a ton of misinformation here. I don't have some strong issue with what I'm seeing here. There's not a ton of misinformation. There's some misinformation. Like we do get some stuff around basically pretending like a third and fourth playstyle don't exist. He just hasn't found them yet. We do get not into the level of detail that I'd like for the length of the, considering the length of the post. There's places that we don't get into the detail that we like. I think it was a little bit of a cheat to do this with such low number of matches played after having been stuck so long, and we get told that Hay did make a second account. Yeah, so that confirms that, which in my mind undercuts the strength of this advice a little bit. Um, but what he's describing is a way to play ball. It's probably the generally strongest way to play ball. It doesn't have the flexibility that I'd like. It doesn't get into enough of the, again, flexibility, different play styles, enough of what to do in your downtime. It covers the budget tracer thing, but it doesn't really cover that well enough for my taste. It doesn't talk about any of our techs like wall jumping for pile drive slams. Um, really doesn't give us enough on mines. I think covering something, if we're gonna cover something, even conceptually, like baiting solo ults, I think I wanted more on mines instead, or I wanted more on, hey, the wall jump off of a wall tech. Like these are things that I think would have been more useful than this. Our counter tier list is wrong. Secret aim training is interesting. Playing around cooldowns is very important. This gets into slightly wrong territory. This is okay for the first bit, but I think we go too far once we get past number 4. Again, like we get into the, I'm not even sure I agree with this, but we're also in the, if we're, depending on how long we want our guide to be, I would rather cover other things that we didn't cover than cover that deep into the target priority. Fine, but not covered again to the depth that we could have with baby touches. I think that's again baby touches to stop the cart from moving would have been more interesting than some of the other stuff we covered and more generally useful than some of the stuff we covered. This is an absolute cop out. This links some guides to get started, and this like feed super hard is the way to do it. I get what he's trying to encourage. He's saying, hey, don't be worried about it, etc., but you don't really need to actually say feed because it's not feeding if you're going in when your team is ready. So what you can really do is you can constantly be checking, is my team ready? Will they be able to do it? This whole comp versus quick play thing I think is misunderstood. Okay, I have more than I'm remembering being critical about here. So I think I'm going to have to give this, I grade things harshly, guys. I grade things harshly. So keep in mind me giving something like a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10, something in that range. I guess we'll call this a 5.5 out of 10. Um, like that might seem like a harsh grade, but I grade everything harshly. So like this is not me saying this is garbage. That would be reserved for like 2 out of 10, 1 out of 10, maybe 3 out of 10 territory. This is reasonable. And I believe this tells this guy's story, and this guy made it into very low masters. And hey, good for him. And what he's describing, like this is a way to play ball, and other people could mimic this way of playing, and they'd play a reasonable ball. This is not in any way a terrible guide. I am not saying that this is a terrible guide, but it's trying to be a more complete guide than the video that we reviewed earlier in this session was. So I'm going to be a little harsher on it, and it does have more things that are wrong. And then it does include things that aren't not wrong, but aren't amazing and aren't explained in much detail that could have been space, time, characters, whatever, dedicated to, I think, more useful things. So somewhere in the like 5.5, 6 out of 10 range. But again, this isn't like video game reviews where everything has to be an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. Like, I actually like to use the whole scale of my thing. So I do not think that this is some awful guide. I think this is a pretty good guide, and I'd like to see more content like this on Overwatch University. Maybe more content like this that I can then go critique. But hey, anyways, if the original poster of this sees this, you can certainly comment, post in chat. Maybe you're here now. I'll catch up in chat. But you've certainly heard what my recommendations would be in terms of making this better, how it goes better. And some of those recommendations, I think, will open you up to, oh, there's situations where I want to play Wrecking Ball differently. So it will help you not just make your guide better, but make you better as a Wrecking Ball player. Because you'll find those 15 to 20% of games where you actually do want to play Wrecking Ball quite a bit differently. We'll go jump and check out comments here in a bit, and I'll hit a refresh to see how this goes. But let's first catch up on chat here because we've let you guys go for a bit here. Okay, so the Miley Cyrus wrecking ball thing. This advice: be super aggressive when learning, then reevaluate what is too much. And honestly, I can get behind that, even if it's worded weird with feed and quick play. Yeah, that's fair. So I've noticed that's a difference with console versus PC players. Console players make almost no attempt to stall or delay the payload and are totally fine with the enemy team pushing it for free. Interesting. Flankers make Diva go heart eyes, but make Ball go sad face. Mostly. I don't really care about Ball that much as Mercy. Agreed. I'm not super worried about the Ball if I'm playing Mercy. Then we've caught up to our super chat from Adam. Thanks again for the 199 super chat saying Temporal sucks. Hammond mains don't listen to him. Wrecking Ball mains just go for boops. The guy doesn't know anything, just goes for boops and roll on point. That's again Adam. And then moving on to Leska. Any tips for ignoring terrible tank play when you're having to practice in comp? I feel like scrimming at a higher level has spoiled me with tanks not just running it down main, but as a hit scan, it gets my blood boiling when I see Orisa on low ground on a map like Rialto or Hollywood on defense. Oh, that'll happen even in higher level scrims than you'd like. I used to be very good at ignoring everything that goes on in a match and just focus on myself, but lately seeing something like that is just distracting and frustrating. I don't know what changed. Did it change maybe because you feel like you've run out of things to work on? Like, yeah, you might have gotten a little spoiled by organized play when maybe you weren't doing organized play before, and that's fine. You can get spoiled by organized play, but you do still need to be able to focus on yourself. Remember, the organized play is your real Overwatch play, and comp is just you going to the gym to work out, to get some cardio in, to do some lifting, because it's your workout to prep for your actual stuff, which is your scrims or your tournament play or whatever the case may be. Like, even if all you do is scrim, you don't do any organized tournament play, you don't do open division, you don't do any of that. Your scrims are more real play than your ladder is. So your ladder is just going to the gym, and you don't care if other people are doing stuff wrong at the gym. Like, that would be like you playing a game of rec basketball or something and you being super worried that your teammate didn't even play high school basketball, didn't play junior high basketball, and is now playing, and you played basketball in college or you played semi-professionally or something like that. You're not going to be upset that other people aren't doing well that ended up on your team. Who cares? You just got to be like, okay, I'm working on my thing. I'm working on making sure I'm getting my engagement timing right. Yes, this tank is not giving me very good windows, so I'm going to have to pay more attention, and I'm going to have to take really good advantage of the windows that I do get to engage, but he's still going to give me some. Even if those some are him getting run over as Orisa on low ground, that's still a window for me to open my angle and try to eliminate them in the back, or try to high noon and protect him with my high noon as I have my angle as he gets rushed on because he's in a bad spot, etc. You just got to keep working on your game. Think of it like the gym. Hammond, you're a big ball, a wrecking ball, which means you're supposed to boot people off maps. Rank higher until your teammates are really good. Uh, yes, please don't needlessly take up my time in the middle of the fight. I have no shortage of things to do. I didn't understand what space was for the first 2 years of playing Overwatch. It was this nebulous concept that people always talked about. Yeah, that's a very fair and very reasonable criticism of space. I think now people have a decent understanding of space, but I think that was very true for years in Overwatch, and that's one of the reasons I'm objecting to their wording of space. We're on the same page, Nardstorm. I think I here went a little more into, okay, well, denying space with mines isn't enough. Talk about what some examples of that could be. Oh, perfect. We have the person who did the guide. So Vinicus Alex is here. Hey guys, I did the guide. I didn't put Brig because she doesn't get me eliminated often, but I know she denies ball a lot. Yeah, she's not necessarily going to eliminate you because one bash isn't enough to eliminate you as ball, and I'll catch up. If you keep commenting, Vinicius, I'll catch up. So you can comment and I'll jump to your stuff. rather, not catch up, I'll jump to your stuff. We can have a bit of a dialogue since this was your guide. But while she might not be getting you elimination, well, she might not be eliminating you because just bash is not 1cc, and we talked about this, is not enough to stop you as ball from doing your work, from running things over, etc., or for get you eliminated. But it can be enough to stop you from getting value out of your secondary playstyle. Your prime playstyle looks like it's a hard engage when your team is ready to commit, which is great. That's a great way to play ball. But your secondary playstyle is to try to go get eliminations with ball, try to go get assassinations, all those things. She's definitely going to be stopping you on that if she's involved, if she can do that between her repair packs and between her ability to bash. Even her ability to knock you away with whip shot is going to be a lot for that. So she's going to be denying you a lot of value. And she also will potentially set up eliminations on you, because if it turns into Brig Bash leads to free May stun, or Brig Bash into Kree stun into fan plus Discord orb, you're not going to be happy type thing. Like that will get you if you get 3. I'll call Discord Orb the third CC in there, you're not going to have a good time. So she's definitely a big contributor to you not getting value. She's also, as they get better, you might not have run into this much, you won't get very many pile drives off, because if you try to pile drive group, she will bash you as you're pile driving, and she will cancel your pile drive pretty regularly. So that's definitely in the list of, I don't think you're rating her high enough. I don't think you realize how much she can or is stopping you from getting eliminations, or is defanging your big hits. Even if she's not actually causing you to get eliminated, though she can certainly contribute to that. I'd also say you're probably undervaluing May a bit there, but we talked about that. Do I have more from Veniscus? Reading chat already? Yes, I am reading chat already. And Veniscus, I don't know if you saw the rating I gave your guide. Again, I am going to reiterate, I used a full 1 to 10 scale when doing my rating, so I do not think that this is some bad, terrible guide just because I didn't rate it, say, 8 out of 10. I gave it a more middle-of-the-road ranking. What did I go? Between 5.5 and 6 out of 10? That is not some, oh my god, this is terrible. This is just, hey, there's a lot of stuff you missed. You spent time covering some things that didn't really justify spending time, considering other things that you skipped, and you did sort of completely leave out disruption play to enable a poke team, or knocking their team in to enable a brawl team. You don't even consider what your team's comp are, and that's something that isn't going to be like, oh yes, you play ball in this other way 50% of the time, but you will play ball in these other ways 15 to 20% of the time. So that's SR you're leaving on the table. Okay, I don't see anything else from Vinicus, so we will go back to chat, and then we will move on with what people have put in the comments here. Okay, so yeah, I think hard and soft counters is easier to understand than good bad. I agree. That wording wasn't amazing. But wording in general, guys, we shouldn't care that much that English is a second language. Like, we can make these comments because it might help them edit the guide if that's what they want to do. Lots of fireworks going off outside. It is the 4th of July. Hopefully you guys can't hear those. Yeah, we can certainly give language feedback to make it easier, but we don't just want to be like, oh, the language is bad. We just want to be doing this from a helpful manner. Distracted by fireworks. Okay, is there going to be a curve for final grade at the end of the semester? I wrote my one and only guide some months back on how to counter Widow as a Widow main. I think it would be fun to have it reviewed by you if you're up to it. Potentially, sure. That could potentially be fun. You can DM it to me, DM a link to it. I might do it. I like to do stuff that's a little more current because it's better for traffic, but I might be willing to do it, especially because I've been invited to review it, which means I'm not going to have someone angry that I'm reviewing their guide, which, I may or may not care about. You need a 3090 OC with liquid cooling and a Samsung 240Hz monitor to exit the metal ranks. No one's sponsoring me hard enough for me to say that. Going from 144 hertz back to 60 hertz, Overwatch is unbearable. Yeah, that's rough. Reinhardt feels like he's swinging his hammer underwater. It does. You will notice the difference from 60 to 144 or 144 back to 60. Everything beyond 144 though is basically in your head. I can't say that completely because humans do exist in their traits on a distribution curve, and there are people who, in theory, exist up at this ranks, but no. How far into this is he? Yeah, I've basically covered it. We'll go through here, and then we'll probably do a final check back on chat. If tank is trolling, play heroes that do not require tanks, i.e. Mei needs a tank, so don't play Mei, but Tracer can probably get away without tanks too. Well, the highly independent heroes are historically some of the best in Overwatch in general, but also especially if your team isn't working in an organized way. So yes, that would be the tracers, the widows, things like that, the roadhogs. Brig will single-handedly deny you from taking space, securing eliminations, and doing what you want. Yep. A good Brig will not even let you get near the back line without you getting incredibly creative. Yep. Are you replying to me? If so, I'm a hit scan main, also Tracer, but also Widow, Ash, Kree. I feel like swapping off those would be good. Would feel like swapping off those would be even worse for practice than getting annoyed at my text. Yeah, I wouldn't tell you to swap off. Oh, was it the person who said go to other things like Brig? Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. Play the heroes that you're working on. If you're a hit scan player, play your hit scan. Okay. Alcuin responding to Leska. Okay. And then we have tech tips on 60 versus 140 versus 240. Have you seen Linus tech tips for video on 60? No, I have not. Okay, so let's check in on the comments here. First off, do I have anything here? Probably just a response to me or upvote notifications. Um, okay, and then Mo13 was the person who I did a previous review for. Okay, so we don't need to check that out right now. We'll do a refresh here to see what the comments look like, and then we'll go look at the comments. And if, again, I linked this in the description, you guys might have to refresh your page because I linked in the description mid-video. If you want to see this, if you want to upvote, downvote the guide, upvote, downvote my response, other responses, whatever, but, may be interesting for visibility. Okay, so nothing's got a huge number of upvotes on this. That's a little disappointing. We'd like to get, we'd like to see a little more traction on content that like this that is trying to be helpful and mostly is being helpful. But here we have someone saying played in 2016, making a thread to ask questions, but they just got the post. Good. Was Genji main? Tried quick play. Not interesting anymore. Genji, new maps are rough. Control his hooks and motion well hooked, and we're talking about this for the grappling hook, not hog. Say you're on the road, can grapple on a horizontal wall in front of me at the same vertical height as my character. I seem to slow down after a while, or is there something like maximum speed after grapple? There is a maximum speed, and the longer you are up, the longer it's been since you've left your grapple, you will start to lose your maximum speed. How did you learn all the grapple spots from YouTube? Apart from YouTube, just trial and error, you learned them pretty fast. You learn the grapple spots pretty fast. You do get a feel after using him pretty quickly. That is something that I wouldn't go study them all on. I would do trial and error to learn that. You will learn them way better by doing, and you will get way better at just guesstimating what it's going to be with that, and you'll have to figure out how to do like wrap through doorway things where like you wrap through the doorway and can spin around it type things. You're not going to be able to learn every single one of those. You're going to want to do that, but I would recommend a mix. I would mostly go, hey, do trial and error to get there, and then after you've spent maybe 20 hours doing trial and error, go watch some YouTube just to see if people are using their grapple in a way you hadn't even considered. Like, say there's a wall here with a doorway here and a doorway here, and you go, oh, I see, I'm going to grapple this corner and use this grappled corner to go like this, and I can do rolls, and you might not have even thought about that. Or, hey, I'm going to grapple in front of me on low ground to accelerate myself type thing. Or, hey, I'm going to grapple up here to arc myself so that I hit the person here, and then I come down and get them with that and that. There's things that you might not have even thought to do that you might want to go check videos to make sure you're thinking of it the right way. You're not really checking the videos or, the wall bounce, roll off the wall, hit a wall bounce, pile drive type thing. You're going to want to see videos to learn that some of these things exist, but you're going to want to try the practice mostly on your own, and you're not practicing for those specific things. Those are more inspiration of, oh, this is a thing I could do. We have the response from the OP. Play balls because he's fun. You have to know the maps and health packs by heart, so grapple spots are useful but optional. I'd say less than optional. Like, if less than optional is a thing, I'd say less than optional. At least until a very, very high level that we're not really covering here. This is a up to master's guide. Hammond's hook will shrink to about 6 meters, I guess. Won't go any longer again. Well hooked. Okay. As long as you know it shrinks, you get used to it in time. The hook never gets longer than the starting point, so you should be careful with short distance hooks. They only get to get speed on the ground, so you can flee quickly or just boot people around. Yeah. Once you get maximum speed, ball seems to Ball seems to get to normal speed at always the same rate. Yeah, you should reduce at the same rate. Yeah, you should generally reduce at the same rate. Okay, these we're not getting amazingly interesting posts here. Too many bots. Yeetle is the best ball content creator. Okay, well now we have a specific link.
What is a
We're not actually going to do this. We've already done enough of this, so we're not actually going to review the wall jump, but this is the sort of thing where I might have even been like, hey, wall jump, and rather than write, here's a thing on it. Like, including wall jump in here wouldn't have been wild for pile drives. It's not like super tier 1 useful information. It's probably like tier 3 useful information in terms of playing ball. But it's more important than some of what we've included in here. So I would have liked to include it, and if you wanted to go, I'm just linking to this other guy's thing rather than explaining it because it's only 4 minutes long. That would have been a great move in my opinion. Wall jump pile drive is probably easier than you think. It takes some work. It takes some work to get that down consistently, especially to get that down consistently in the heat of action. I wouldn't undersell that too hard in terms of the effort required for that one. It's not like, oh my god, hardest thing in the game. You only have one frame to pull it off, but it's not nothing. Didn't mention Junkrat as a counter. That's true. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Only 3 upvotes. That's disappointing. But again, the comments aren't getting a ton of traction here. Mm-hmm. I wonder if that got better. I wonder if that got better in some way with this region change, where it's like, no, now we're going to do more thing where we've eliminated regions. Probably not. That's a shame. I did some coaching Fury down in South America for South American contenders. And it's wild because you've obviously got people who are barely on PCs or some ancient computers in some cases. But that's life. You work with what it is. It was one of the things that contributed to that not being the strongest scene. It wasn't the pushover that some NA players thought it was. There was one NA team that like lost in open division and in NA and was like, oh, we'll just go down to South America and we'll just crush it. And then they still lost in South American open division or trials, maybe it was. And it was like, wasn't as easy as you thought, was it? They thought they were just going to clean everything up. Some players down there have skill, and we've seen that. We've seen some players from South America make it up to Overwatch League and do reasonable. Okay. Not interesting. Okay, I think that does it. I'll catch up on comments from chat. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe, as that helps out quite a bit, and I really do appreciate that. Or if you are looking to get coaching yourself, you can join my Discord in the description below, see what rates look like, see what sort of promos, special events we have going on, all of that good stuff. Or if you want to see when these things go live in yourself so that you can be here to comment when we're doing something like reviewing someone's guide, talking about, people saying, oh, just heal with mercy until plat, reacting to those kinds of things, and you want to be here to be in chat because you see I cover a lot of what people say in chat, to ask questions, all that stuff. Best way to do that is in the Discord. Go to the get roles spot, maybe it's get notifications, react to get the watcher role in that channel, and then you will get Discord pings when I go live. So you can see, oh, that's a topic that I care about. I want to be here for this. I want to be able to comment, chat, etc. Or you can look at it later. All up to you. Okay, let's catch up on the last bit of chat. Okay. Anything server or networking from him is ultra cringe for the Linus Tech Tips video. Okay. What I rate the guide, I think I rated it somewhere between I did rate it somewhere between a 5.5 and a 6. But again, I'm using the full 10-point scale, so that is not a 2, that is not a 3, that is this is reasonable. I spend too much. This is not video game ratings where everything has to be an 8, 9, or a 10 because the industry is bought and paid for, and you would like the industry, the publishers, to keep sending you trial games, and if you rate too low, you're afraid that they won't send you trial games, and therefore you better keep your ratings in this range. This isn't that. We use our full scale. So 5.5, 6 isn't a terrible score. It's not an amazing score, but it's not a terrible score. Spend too much time on your PC. That's interesting. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh. You miss Spylo's Hammer Time. Glad you found this to replace it. Yeah, I suppose this is basically what Spylo does in Hammer Time. Yeah, that's fair. Eventually you'll get used to him. Fine. I still don't know the grapple spot at Blizzard World midsection. That's fine, but do you find yourself, and that's from Vicious the Guide Writer here, that's fine, but like, do you find yourself missing it very often? Do you find yourself going, oh, that would be really helpful right now? I'd guess no. And again, once you really get some level of mastery, actual mastery with Bell, then you go, okay, what are these ones that I can't do? And you go work on those specifically. But I wouldn't make that your emphasis unless you're missing types of ways to use the grappling hook. That's what you need that's what you go check for to increase your own development. Mm-hmm. Here's my post. This guide is fairly basic, but does have things that are somewhat accurate. Should help to get into Diamond, but isn't giving you anything super creative or advanced, but it's valid. Okay, that's your way of that's FCB's thing, or maybe that's a critique of what my commentary is on it. I don't know. But if they're saying that that's their post, I think that's a valid description of what this guide is. Uh-huh. I did a ping test from the data center firewalls of my company. I had 20 MS pinged Overwatch servers. My new goal is to game from my company's data center by plugging into our firewalls. Good luck with that. Uh, in the mini mercy guide, you said you don't have to heal up to full, but doesn't that not enable them because 60% health to take more aggressive angles? So I say you don't intentionally heal them up to full, but you still end up weaving them up to full. So let's say that you save. It's not specifically a hard number, 60%. It's based on the amount of damage that they're in. And you're right. They are going to play more passive with 60% health than they are with 100% health. But 60% health should be enough to get them out there and get them taking shots. And let's say it's a McCree that you're working with. At 60% health, I would rather he's out there taking shots and all now damage boost him, and that's a good thing. And then once he gets to something like he takes more damage and gets behind cover, or he goes into a reload, or he rotates and goes behind cover again, now I'm going to heal him a little more. And if he's reloading, that's a free chance to heal him. And I might get him while he's reloading. Now he's up at 100%, or now he's up at 90%. And now I'm boosting him at 90%. And then I'll find another opportunity. Or maybe he'll take damage first and I'll have to heal him back up somewhere. But you're going to still find opportunities to weave that healing up because you're paying attention. Because you notice, hey, he was shooting at a Genji, but there's nothing he's shooting at anymore. He's not doing anything anymore. Or he closed the angle because he's reloading type thing. So I'm going to heal him. Or he didn't close the angle, but I can still tell he's reloading because I can see the guy with my eyeballs. So I'm going to heal him while he's not getting offensive value. So yes, I am eventually going to get him up to 100% with weaving. That's something I'm going to do, but he's useful at 60%. And I would rather boost him contributing at a moderately threatening place than a super threatening place. And what you might be thinking is like, hey, if he's on an angle like this and he's at 60% health, he can do his work from here. He might take this bigger angle if he's got 200% health, but he probably shouldn't. If your next cover is over here, you probably shouldn't take this bigger angle, so I don't really care. I don't want to encourage him to play wrong. Now, you might be stopping him from running up to the next cover by having a 60% rather than 100%. And if you recognize that what he wants to do is he wants to move forward to this bigger, to this more aggressive cover, yeah, that's a different situation, and you might heal him up to enable him to get there. Or you might go, I healed him up to 60%, but now I'm going to leave to go help someone else out, and I'm not actually willing to leave him here at 60% health because I am comfortable with him at 60% health when I'm around and can triage heal him if need be, but I consider the incoming risk to him too great. So I might heal him up to 80, 90, 100% health before I GA halfway across the point over to help my Zen over here. Because the danger that he's in increases by me not being here. So I'm going to go, hey, now I need you to be a little bit higher. So it's not that I'm going to leave him at 60% health forever. It's that he can contribute again once he's at 60% health, and I want him doing that. And my damage boosting him and him being out there at 60% health and damage boost is more useful than me just healing him to 100, because that way I'll still find chances to weave and get his health back up. I hope that makes sense, Eloquin. I know that's a little complicated. I tried to get fairly in depth in my Mercy mini guide. I think I saw you replied with a comment to the Mercy mini guide. I think that was you, and I haven't replied to that comment because like my reply sort of is the guide. Like my reply sort of is the guide itself, where it's like, no, that's what you're doing. Yeah, you do have some level of they're potentially not going to play as aggressive. And if you run into someone who just won't peek the corner, they're just going to sit here until you heal them up to full. Yes, you're going to cave and heal them up to full because they're contributing 0 if they refuse to peek. But they're actively hurting your team by doing that. You wanted to go, hey, I healed you up, and now you start to peak, and once you've started to peak and actually opened the angle, I damage boost you. You're not stopping at 60% if they're just staying behind cover. But if they're starting to go out, great, now you're going to go back to damage boost once they have an open sight line. If they're at 30%, you're absolutely going to heal them again. Nordstrom, as he puts it, I always think my goal isn't to keep people at full health, it's to keep them from hitting 0. Exactly. And you can keep them from hitting 0 better by helping them win the fight faster. And that's something you'll absolutely notice. Especially, and I had this discussion with Rilth a couple days ago when he posted his Mercy guide, like a McCree versus McCree duel when they're fighting at close range. If my McCree's at 80% and the other McCree's at 50%, you better believe I'm damage boosting my McCree to help him win that fight faster as opposed to healing him. Even though my McCree has room to be healed more, I am absolutely damage boosting that McCree because that's actually safer. Like, it's actually safer for my McCree to be damage boosted 80%, damage boosted at 70%, whatever, than healed to full percent. Like, anything I can do to make that fight end faster is way safer with the danger of burst damage, flashes, fans, etc. That makes sense. Thank you. Excellent. I'm glad that makes sense. If you have more questions or more comes to you, I don't mind answering, but you got to be specific for me. Okay. Video game journalism ratings. Yeah, I know. Video game journalism is pretty awful, but then again, journalism in general has gotten pretty awful in America. So, okay, speaking of Overwatch Uni content, did you see the post about how to get value out of Rhine Shatters? I thought it had some okay discussion. I did not. I did not see that post. I might go take a look and see if it's worth responding to, but this one was a pretty old post for me to respond to. Did it anyways. That one sounds like it'll probably be even older, so might not make sense unless it's got a ton of traction, but I'll certainly go take a look at it after this. Okay. It looks like we've exhausted this topic. I think we've covered it meaningfully well. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, if you did, please do like, and if you aren't already subscribed, you can hit that subscribe button down below there. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.